Sector CH was cut off from the rest of the world in 1992. A 9-story concrete wall, towers with machine guns, jammed communications, and a frightening silence inside. According to official reports, a virus leak. According to unofficial reports, something worse, something that cannot be explained. Those who tried to enter were stopped not by security, but by radiation. Not ordinary, artificial. It did not kill instantly, but in a strange way. Bodies turned black, blood coagulated, teeth fell out in a few minutes. Stalkers, mercenaries, extreme sportsmen, everyone who tried to cross the 30-meter zone near the wall died in agony. One survivor who lasted the longest, 7 minutes, whispered in delirium before dying, "He is watching. He is in each of us." The authorities kept quiet about the topic. The sector was declared lost until 2 weeks ago, when people appeared on the surviving cameras. They were standing on the streets. They were moving slowly. They were looking into the camera lenses with the same faces as in the 1992 photographs. Not aged, not changed. And one of them, a man with empty eyes, moved his lips. After decryption, the message became clear. "We have found a way back, but you are not ready." The Tetra Company, a private structure with an unknown investor, launched an expedition. The project was called Protocol 92. The team included 4: Alexei Gromov, cameraman and chronicler; Klim, a former Special Forces soldier with combat psychosis; Daria Chernova, a young biologist obsessed with the idea of understanding how it all began; Pavel Ryazanov, the group commander, a former employee of a non-existent unit, too silent, too calm. The entrance was through a gateway capsule built into the wall. On the other side was another world. No sounds, no wind, no life. The air was thick like old dust. It smelled of moisture, rust, and something chemical, as if plastic was burning somewhere in the distance. The street in front of them looked mothballed. The cars were parked like on the day of the disaster. The windows were fogged up from the inside. On one of the walls was an inscription, scratched as if with nails. "Leave us." The group moved toward the nearest house. An old panel house. The windows were boarded up, but one of the TVs inside worked. The screen showed old Soviet cartoons, mixed, distorted. The sound was muffled, but if you listened closely, you could hear a voice. Childish, similar to Alexei's voice. Klim, noticing movement in the window, raised his weapon. But there was no one behind the glass. Only a mirror in which everyone was reflected, except him. They didn't say a word. An old note was lying in the mailbox at the entrance. A child's notebook page. Written on it, in trembling handwriting, was, "He tells us how to live. He doesn't let us grow old. He promised that we would become better. If you are reading this, you can already hear him." Razanov checked the instrument readings. The radiation background inside the sector was 0. This didn't correspond to logic. Everything that was outside was deadly, and here inside everything seemed to be frozen in time. But this was not preservation. This was distortion. Sector CH was not dead. It lived, but by its own rules. Alexei felt voices pounding in his temples, fuzzy, whispering, as if someone was talking through an old film. "You're back, huh? Then you'll remember. You've already been here." On the 3rd day of the expedition, the group came to a gray building, half buried in ash, the former Institute of Biotechnology. That's where it all began. According to the archives, it was from here that the alarm first sounded in 1992. It was here that someone first stopped being themselves. The corridors were littered with papers, glass, bodies, mummified, as if dried out from the inside. No flies, no smell, no sounds. As if time itself had rotted here. On one of the walls, someone was writing in dark handprints. "He has awakened in us. We are not sleeping." Having gone down to the basement, they came across a metal door with welded hinges. It was knocking from the inside, as if something was slowly, stubbornly, and inhumanly beating in the rhythm of a heart. Klim broke the lock. The door opened with a howl, and in the dim yellow light of the lanterns, they saw a man. Alive. He sat on the floor in the corner, surrounded by rotted monitors. His skin was gray. There were bluish bags under his eyes. He didn't blink. "Don't come any closer. You can hear him now, can't you?" he croaked. "Who are you?" "Dr. Lev Veltman. I stayed, alone. Since 1992, I stayed, because he allowed it." They were shocked. How had he survived 33 years in this lifeless zone? He began to speak haltingly, paranoidly, almost in a whisper. "This is not a virus. This is not a disease. This is a call. We created Reagent Zero, a drug for reformatting consciousness, to remove suffering, emotions, fear, to make people comfortable. It worked, but not the way we wanted." "What happened?" "We opened the passage. Something hurt us. Something entered us. It does not take the body. It settles in the mind. The person remains, but is no longer him. It is like a shadow behind the eyes." He showed an old syringe with a cloudy liquid. "I created a blocker. While it works, I hear myself. But soon it will end. Then, I will watch how someone lives in me, and I am just an observer." Alexei felt the pressure pressing down. The air in the basement became thick, like in a swamp. The lantern flickered, and suddenly, a rustle. At first, barely audible, then closer. The scraping of nails on concrete, heavy breathing, footsteps, uneven, not human. As if the bones were not used to moving, they appeared in the darkness of the corridor. Figures, withered, with empty, blind eyes. Faces frozen, like wax masks. Some were still in their institute robes. One was in pajamas. One was missing his lower jaw. But they all moved in sync, as if they were listening to the same music that the others couldn't hear. They didn't scream. They didn't growl. They looked. Their faces were calm, terribly calm. Daria started crying without realizing it. Ryazanov pulled out his gun. Klim was screaming, "Back! Back! They're coming! We're leaving!" Weltman grabbed Alexei by the hand and hissed, "If even one of them goes beyond the perimeter, the whole world will hear the voice. It won't stop. It'll just start." Running out of the basement, Klim looked back. One of the dead men stopped and smiled, tenderly, like a mother to a baby, and whispered, "You'll be better. You'll become new." The door held, after all, for a while. They exchanged glances. Silence, only heavy breathing and water dripping from the ceiling. In the corner, one of the survivors, a young technician named Ilya, was sitting huddled up, his whole body shaking. "Are you okay?" Daria approached cautiously. He didn't answer. Then, he raised his head, and everyone saw his eyes. White, like a dead man's. Blood was coming from his nose, from his ears. He was smiling, but his face no longer showed any emotion. "I hear him," he said quietly. "He's singing to me, calling, promising peace." Klim stepped forward, but it was too late. Ilya jumped up as if possessed, and with inhuman speed rushed at the nearest fighter. Teeth right into the neck. Crunch, scream, blood on the walls. Panic. Daria screamed. Klim fired, but it was too late. Two more of the group began to tear their skin, scrape their nails on the concrete, vibrate as if something inside them was bursting to get out. "This is not just a bite. It is transmitted through the air," Veltman shouted. "They are already inside. This is not a virus. This is a mind." One of the infected fell to the floor, convulsing. Black mucus flowed from his mouth. He made a sound like a child's cry, only distorted in an unreal tone. His head slowly turned 180 degrees. And then, a sharp jump on the wall, like a spider. The silence exploded with screams. Now everyone began to suspect everyone. "Someone has already started. I saw him blink incorrectly. We don't have time, either we them or they us." They broke out of the laboratory, through the corridors flooded with flickering light, and behind them, former comrades were already running, now, hunched, growling, twisted shadows. People who died not on the outside, but inside themselves. Alexei held Daria's hand. He heard her breathing become ragged. He didn't know. Was she still human? Or maybe already infected? Veltman fell. When Klim raised him, he whispered, "You won't understand. This is not an infection. This is a replacement. We are no longer the first inhabitants of our own body." He pulled out a syringe. "If I inject myself, I will disappear. But if I don't inject myself, I will disappear too. Just more slowly." Behind, one of the fighters began to moan. "Help! Help!" He held his head, blood from his ears, vomition from his mouth, and then he tore his cheek with his teeth, feeling no pain. One by one they broke, smoothly, quietly, horribly, and no one knew who would be next. And with each passing second, the walls of the Institute were getting closer and closer, like a cage. There was death outside, inside its new forms, and in everyone's head the same whisper began to sound. "Soon, you will become us." The helicopter was taking off into the sky. Sector 92 below looked like a dead organ crawling with worms. Bodies, screams, radiation, fire. The sky above them was black, starless. The helicopter shook in turbulence and jerks of panic. Darya sat pressed against the wall. Klim looked at the floor, holding the machine gun in his hands with trembling fingers. "We're saved," she whispered. "No," someone answered, too calmly. Everyone turned around. The soldier who sat opposite, silent, not paying attention to them since the moment of ascent, began to take off his gloves. Slowly, coldly. The skin of his hands was black, as if burned, with a network of pulsating veins sliding under the surface, as if alive. He looked at them, and his eyes were completely black, without pupils, no proteins, only bottomless darkness. "You didn't get it, did you?" he said in a strange voice. It was as if he was speaking in several voices at once, in which you could hear a child's whisper and the grinding of metal and a wheeze from the grave. "Quarantine didn't hold us back. It opened the way for us. And now," he stood up, "you will become our shepherds, bearers, faces of the new order." Darya jumped up. Klim tried to shoot, but the soldier disappeared right in front of him, melting into the air like smoke. A scream from behind. One of the pilots wheezed and hit his forehead on the dashboard. Black liquid was flowing out of his ears. Panic. The helicopter jerked. The signal lights lit up. The altitude began to drop. "This is not an evacuation," Klim shouted. "It's a delivery." Darya covered her mouth with her hands, looking at the panel map. On the screen, the destination was written in flashing red, Sector 01, Megapolis. They were not flying to the base. They were flying to the city center. And then a hoarse, inhuman laugh rang out across the entire salon. Not just from the mouth, from the air, from the walls, from within. "They think it's just a virus," someone whispered in her ear. "But it's not a virus anymore. It's an awakening. What Sector 01 is hiding,